Good morning and welcome to the Pantera Lithium Investor Webinar. I'm Jane Morgan, Investor and Media Relations Manager, and today we are joined by our Executive Chairman and CEO, Barnaby Egerton-Warburton. Today, Barnaby will be providing an update on the company, followed by a number of important announcements which have been lodged with the ASX. This will be followed by a Q&A session, so to ask a question throughout today's webinar, please use the Q&A function which can be found at the bottom of your screen. Barnaby, I might just hand to you now just to give us a company update.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Thanks for the introduction. I guess we're doing this webinar just to give investors a quick update on where the company sits right now and what we're up to outside of what you can read in our ASX releases. Most of the calls I'm getting at the moment about the Gillum acquisition in Southwest Arkansas, and those questions really revolve around why are we looking at that project, why we acquired this project. So a little bit of history. About 12 months ago, we started looking at this project and looking at other opportunities in Arkansas, even while we still owned the Smackover lithium brine asset. We, not just Arkansas, but we looked at Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, areas close to where we were operating. And just as it turned out, 120 odd kilometers to the north west of us was the Gillum Silver Antimony Base Metals District, which, as we've said or shown or demonstrated in our announcement, had not been looked at for over 100 years or mined for nearly 80 years. You know, these kind of areas are similar to the Victorian goldfields. They were mined by the old timers. They got down 50, 80 feet, and then water came in. And so a lot of those projects and those mines were abandoned. Why it made absolute sense for us was that we already have a team set up in Arkansas. We've got a great reputation in the state from stakeholders on the ground all the way through to local government and state government. And so it's been a very pretty easy transition to get there and pick this project up. When you see a project like this, and because we do not have a JORC resource or a JORC table on this, when you see a project like this with the kind of grades and the potential that this project has across an area that no one else had leased or no one had gone back and done the work and discovered, it's quite compelling to pick a project up like this. I would suggest that while I can't discuss a lot of the numbers, but in the last announcement we made, or the second to last announcement we made, at the very end of that paper, or that release, there are some references and some bullet points that relate to articles and reports. I would suggest that shareholders look for those reports online. They are available, and you will see the potential that we see. So this acquisition is in the state. We know it's a cheap acquisition, or when I say acquisition, a cheap process to go and lease, and highly, highly prospective. With the geological interp we've done and we released last week, you can start to see how we think this could expand, and you know, it could be something of significance. So that was the reason behind initially looking at this project. And then you back that up with A, you're working in a great state with a great governor and great support. B, you're in the US, critical minerals, and the US federal government, or the Trump administration, has demonstrated they will back good projects. And C, we didn't have to go and buy this project. There were no middlemen. We negotiated with the mineral owners and leased it up, and you can see how cheaply we got that for. Like the Smackover, you're dealing with individual mineral owners, either corporations or individual people, families. Thankfully, in this process, we only had really a couple of mineral owners to talk to and deal with, so that made it very, very easy. So it was a cheap acquisition, a good project, highly prospective, and you know, we are very, very excited about this. These projects that have been forgotten about do provide a lot of potential, and there are a few more around that we are looking at, not necessarily in Arkansas, but in other states as well. The next question I get a lot of queries on, or a lot of queries about, is our exploration plan and our timing. We are vigorously planning right now a geochem survey. I expect to have people on the ground December, January, and also 2 geologists over there, December, January, mapping, sampling. And we'll probably fly a mag survey in January as well, a drone mag survey as well. So we're not just picking project up and sitting around and doing nothing. So I expect to have some results out probably by the end of January on what we're seeing on the ground. One of the interesting things about this area as well is that there's never been a drill hole. There's been no modern exploration. The old timers would come along, they'd see a bit of quartz at surface and a bit of maybe mineralization at surface, and that's how they would mine and produce these things. If it got deep or water came in, they would just walk away. And we did see back in this project was first discovered back in the mid 1800s by a young Indian boy. Antimony has been mined and used for a long, long time. And so, it is at the whim of the price of the metal. But with a sustained price in antimony being added and confirmed on the critical minerals list in the US, and no agreement between China and the US on antimony, silver, copper, lead, it really falls in a positive way on our side of the fence. So exploration plan and timing will be out there December, January, and hopefully have some results January, February, maybe before. We'll see how quickly we can get out there. The third question I've been getting a lot lately is about EnergyX. Why the sale? I mean, shareholders voted to complete that sale, but why the sale? So when we look at what we had, which we thought was a great project, but it had gotten away from us in terms of size and our ability to fund drilling. Steel prices in the US have gone crazy in the last 5-8 years. And when I say steel prices, I mean your tubing, your completion equipment, everything has gone up massively. So for us to go and drill a well, and this is just the test well, and just test our brine, was going to cost around 2.5 million US. So nearly 4 million Aussie. And when at that point in time, when we had a market cap of 6 million, I certainly didn't want to dilute shareholders by that much. So we met EnergyX and T. Egan and his team. They're a very, very aggressive group, and they are moving very, very quickly on their projects. They're building their Lone Star Lithium pilot plant, or their commercial demonstration plant, which I believe is almost finished, just outside of Texarkana. So for us, they made a lot of sense in terms of their ability to get to market and develop their projects very quickly. By making that sale as well to EnergyX and becoming a shareholder of EnergyX, we also now have exposure to their Chilean project, their Black Giant project, which is about a 4.5-hour drive inland from Antofagasta in Chile, in the Atacama Desert. That is a sensational project. The PFS is out. You can find details about that. Teague and EnergyX have announced that Goldman Sachs are handling their farming process and their investor process. They've got Exim Bank committing hundreds of millions of dollars to help them develop it. So we get sort of 2 bites of the cherry. We are seeing the lithium stocks, or the lithium price, gradually turn. We're seeing the investment banks starting to re-rate lithium. JP Morgan out last week and the week before. The brine stocks, the Australian listed brine stocks, are still not getting a great deal of attention here, but I would suggest that that is to come. We're starting to see volumes in other stocks, and I've had a couple of calls from the US asking about, new investors asking about our exposure to EnergyX, and we provide a liquid way for other investors to get some exposure to EnergyX as well. So, we're very positive on that sale, and we're positive on EnergyX. that's kind of a very quick, brief rundown. Hopefully, I haven't been too wordy. So I'm really happy to open up to questions, Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. And webinar attendees, please use the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen if you've got questions for Barnaby.
Oh, they're coming
We have
through thick and fast.
Yes, we've actually had a few that have come through, but you have answered them. I'm going to just jump into them anyway. I mean, this is obviously just about Arkansas and why that's sort of becoming the cornerstone of Pantera's US strategy. But then further to that, what's the main criteria that's driving, Pantera's expansion into antimony, silver, copper, and that rare earths opportunity across the United States?
I think it's sort of that's sort of two questions. So why Arkansas? And I've said this before. I've worked in a lot of states in the US before. Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana, New Mexico, California, Nevada, Utah. Nowhere have I gotten the attention. A small company, tiny micro company, gotten the attention and the help that we have in Arkansas. They're a very progressive government. They're very pro critical minerals. They're pro resource development, which we're seeing in the smackover in their legislation. Their local senators are very proactive, and we know all of them. So it's a great jurisdiction to operate. And while I don't want my competition from the junior end of the market to start running around Arkansas, I know one or two of them already are. I can't sing the praises of the state enough. Secondly, if you find a project that just happens to be 100 kilometers away from where you already are in a sector or a mineral that has potentially huge upside going forward in the critical mineral space that's been underexplored, underexploited, it just makes sense because I can roll my team, my locals, and we don't have a big team. Just to let you know, we have land. And sort of stakeholder engagement. So my team is really two core guys, Cleve Thomas and John Bishop. I think you would have seen Cleve on a Zoom call before with you, Jane. And then we use Lafayette Abstract, which is a great guy called Dan Dillard. So we have a team set up there. It just makes it very cheap and efficient for us to operate in the state. And the second part of your question is, sort of why antimony? Well, this area, high-grade antimony, as I said, go and look at those, go and dig up the papers. I'm not allowed to talk about what they mined per ton, but in terms of, say, silver, very, very impressive. Do your own research, but go and have a look at those references and you'll see why. An underexploited, underexplored area. And in critical minerals, there's copper there, lead, zinc, antimony, and silver. So it's a really interesting region and area, and we've basically leased over the area that is prospective, probably 90% of it. So therein lies the answer to those two questions.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to note, obviously, we do have a good relationship with, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders out of Arkansas, over the past few years. So another reason why it's a good state to sort of be working with. Okay, so next one. All right, so can you explain how the county-wide abstract agreement, you sort of touched on this now, with Lafayette County, sort of accelerates mineral title acquisition and gives Pantera that first mover edge?
Yes. So in these in the US, you have sort of, I guess, three styles of mineral owner. You have federal government, state governments, and then you have individuals, individuals, corporations, and sometimes First Nations groups that will own minerals. And I put them all in one basket. So let's say where we are in Gillum, around Gillum, you had a boom there in mining in the late 1800s. Excuse me, early 1900s. A lot of wheeling and dealing happens with mineral title. So you need a good team and a group that's very experienced in understanding and the process to discern who owns the minerals. So Lafayette Abstract and Title is one of the best. title groups we've ever used. We use them very, very efficiently in the Smackover. There isn't really an abstract and title group in Sever County on the mineral side. And so we just rolled Lafayette Abstract and Title into Sever County and signed that exclusivity agreement. I know that I can talk about it because I don't want other people to go and use them, but that's why we've signed him up across the whole county. So it's just smart business, as I've probably talked about in the past. When the big companies get involved in these plays, a bit like, say, Exxon coming into Lafayette County, those big oil and gas players will come into a county and they'll try and buy all the title companies so no one else can work out who owns what. So we're not so much at risk of that here, but having a group that are just next door, know what they're doing, and can work very, very quickly and efficiently is a huge advantage to us.
Thanks, Barnaby. I'm jumping around a little bit here. This is just on the acquisition. So the Gillam acquisition covers approximately 5,000 acres and it's got 18 historic mines on the project, in fact, even more. What makes this district so compelling for modern exploration after nearly a century of inactivity?
Well, it's really simple. It's never really been explored properly. As I said before, and I've been out there, walked the ground, you find a surface expression, and when all you had back in the day was picks, shovels, and dynamite, you find surface expression, and then you go for it. But no one's put a drill hole down anywhere, and we're still working out the geology. We think it does have huge potential, and that is why, because it's an underexplored, forgotten about district. And as I pointed out a couple of weeks ago to when we were sort of putting a submission in, or not a submission, but talking to the ASX, I said, there's 350 million people in the US. The ASX and our investors should be pretty impressed that we were able to, out of not every 350, every one of the 350 million people are looking for antimony projects, but investors should be pretty impressed that we were able to find this project by going back, doing a very deep dive into old papers with the USGS. It's very laborious. So, underexplored, no one knew about it. And, as Australian companies typically do, the juniors, we're very proactive, and that's why we have success.
Absolutely. Okay, next one. This one's actually come through a few times and you did answer it in sort of your opening speech, but it's just about the program of work. So there were 7 high priority targets that were identified at Gillam. So this one just asks, what's the program of work and expected timing for field work and drilling?
Yeah, okay. So field work, we've done the geological inter by a very, very experienced and good geologist, Richard Russell. Richard Russell will be over there. He will be there in January. We are marking out now lines of where we're doing geochem. I'm going through contracts for, and this, everyone will go, oh, well, they're going so slowly, blah, blah. No, we're going very, very quickly. So December, January, we will be on the ground and hopefully results by the end of January.
Thank you, Barnaby. Actually, this one's just on Dr. Russell. So perhaps a little bit of background on him and, the geological and structural work that he's been doing and how that's sort of making us understand the mineralization in that district.
Well, Dr. Russell is I think he's 73-year-old South African-born geologist who is a wealth of information, and he looks at things differently. So you mix the old school knowledge with the new school. So, we team Dr. Russell up with Louis Jordan. Louis Jordan's a 25-year-old on the ground, picking up rocks, mapping. You put the two of them together, you get them on the ground, and they find different things. So Dr. Russell's experience is invaluable, and we're very, very lucky to be able to get him to do this work for us.
Thank you. Jumping around a bit here again. So again, on the inclusion of antimony, silver, copper, and lead on the 2025 critical minerals list, This one's just about funding and the potential for US government funding based on, those inclusions. So, I mean, where does that sort of sit for Pantera?
Well, it's everyone talks about it. It's very early days. There are a lot of consultants running around in the US saying, "I can get you on the list. I can push you here. I can push you there." At Pantera, we had some discussions with some very well connected groups, or one group in particular, that are it's basically as high as you can go. So when we're ready, and we would like to apply for some funding, it will be available. It is a process, but it will be available. And the US government is extremely proactive on this front.
This next question actually just sort of leans into that, and you have covered it again. It's just on the EnergyX transaction. So, just recapping, how that $40 million sale of the Smackover project to EnergyX has strengthened the balance sheet and the exposure to the US lithium value chain, hydroxide value chain.
Yeah, okay. So I guess what the question is what does it mean for us, and how could it play out? So it means that we don't need to go and raise money. I've had plenty of brokers approach me, even prior to announcing the Gillam project, saying, "Do you want to raise money?" My focus is not to dilute shareholders. My focus is to deliver great results, exceptional results with the capital and the cash we have. So we have 2 million in the bank now. We have another 2 million coming in July, and then another 2 million sort of 9 months post that. That will fund us all the way through. So we're not running around looking to raise capital. So on that front, the EnergyX deal has given us some security and some surety. And rest assured, I'm not coming to the market to raise any money. I think, and I can see a question here, so from a shareholder as well, which I'll tie into this. And he's asking, would it be correct to say that PFE is a significant arbitrage discount to EnergyX price, which should be attractive to potential EnergyX investors? Yes, in a way, yes. We do trade at a massive discount. We obviously, is because EnergyX is a private company, and the value see-through as well. They're raising money at $11 a share, and they're raising a lot of money at $11 a share. So we can say, well, that is now worth 39 million Aussie dollars to us, plus the 6 million they're paying. So we've already done well. But because they're private, and there's no liquid event or see-through liquidity, so to speak, we get a discount to that. But I would suggest that EnergyX could be a significant or provide a significant uplift in value to us in the next 18 months to 2 years, depending on what they decide to do with a listing, if they do a listing or they start production. One of the things I will say is, and I've said this before, the brine players in Australia, I can name them, that have projects in Canada and North America, really don't get a lot of attention. Have a look at Pilbara Minerals, PLS. Look at what's happened to the share price in the last few months. That is now starting to trickle down, or that positiveness is starting to trickle down into other brine players. And I see that happening in the private side with EnergyX on the interest. And I see that happening in the listed players. So Prairie Lithium is an example of where you're starting to see volume in the stock, and the interest is coming back. And that's all out of US-based investors, typically.
Actually,
So in answer to that question, yes, I think we do provide an access or a discount to EnergyX. We're not a massive shareholder, but let's say they went to list in 18 months or 2 years. I would say that our sort of 40 million would be very much a low ball value for what they could deliver to us.
Absolutely. Sorry, this one's come through just on the EnergyX partnership. Just asking if there was any opportunities or collaborative opportunities with EnergyX, in future lithium or technology ventures that again would enhance sort of shareholder value.
Yeah, well, it's actually interesting. You say that whoever's asked this question, it's really interesting. So, TIG is building a huge, and I'm sure most people have been on the EnergyX website. Um, TIG is building a huge facility in the Arklatex region, in which he will produce a battery grade lithium, possibly batteries, possibly other components. Now, is there potential if we had an antimony, copper, silver, whatever it may be, project that was operational? Absolutely. But these things take a long time to drill, discover, build. But yeah, going forward, it's really only an hour away from Gillam to Red River Army Base, or the Red River Army Base area where the EnergyX facility is, and it's going to be an extremely impressive facility. So yeah, there is potential. It's a long way off, I think.
Um, okay, just sticking with this as well. It's just a question here on how much energy actually raised at that $11 mark.
Well, I do know how much they've raised, but that would be confidential, and so I'm not at liberty to talk about that. It's not my EnergyX is not my company. I talk to them and Teague, a couple of times a week, to see how they're going, what they're up to, what the progress is like. So the Benchmark Lithium Conference is on in LA right now. I think it started today. EnergyX, I think Teague is presenting there, but all the lithium players, the Japanese, Korean, Chinese, US, European players are there. So maybe he'll talk about that. But yeah, I can't answer that question. Sorry, that's not for mine, not for me to answer. But needless to say, that capital raise is going very, very well, better than what, and it's amazing. Let me tell you, it's amazing. The size of investment that comes into private companies in North America. It would blow you away.
Absolutely. Okay, again, jumping around a little bit. So with the 2 million in cash and a further 2 million coming through in mid-2026, this is about allocating capital between near-term exploration, new project acquisition, and growth.
Okay. So what we'll spend on the ground, these are not expensive operations. This is geochem, rock chip sampling. Probably the most expensive thing would be a drone magnetic survey, and we haven't decided 100% on that. That drone mag survey may be somewhere in the 40 to 50,000 US. So maybe 150,000 out of Gillam, Aussie dollars, to work out what's next, where we're drilling, and at that stage we're probably into Q2 next year. In terms of new projects, the beauty of the way we operate and operating in the US is that because we've been there so long, myself personally, in the oil and gas business for 20 years, and other guys in my team for a very long, long time. We don't go out and buy projects from other people. We go and find our own projects. The US, it's funny, right? And I'm sort of going a little bit off piece here, but when you find a new region, a new area, whether it's North America, South America, Africa, Europe, you show up there thinking you're going to be the first there. You hear sort of three accents. You definitely hear Aussies, and then you'll bump into the Canadians. And if it's Africa, you'll bump into the Brits as well. So Australians and Canadians are very good explorers in North America. We're very good at finding projects that we're not buying. And that's why, you're not going to see us paying, 5, 10 million, whatever it is, and issuing a heap of stock for project. We'll go out and we will find the projects, and we'll talk to the mineral owners, and then we'll lease those projects up. And it's economic leasing in minerals like this, as opposed to the oil and gas or the brine sector. So it's much cheaper.
Barnaby, there's another one that's actually just come through on that. So, just talking about the strategy and timeline, for rapidly securing this dominant land position, the question just keeps asking a number of leases and packages that we plan to add, those that are already underway, are there any bottlenecks, and whether or not we're prioritizing antimony-rich trends or just that broader sort of acquisition.
Yeah, okay. So I can see that question. How many packages do you expect to add in the next 90 days? Well, in this area, we basically control 90% of the geology that we want to explore. There are a few leases around the periphery that we're looking at, and people that we're talking to. So we might add another 1,000 acres or 800 acres, or we may add none. But we looked at this project, and this will answer this. This will make this make more sense. We've been looking at this project in this area for over a year now, 12 months. So we've done a lot of work on who owns what, where they are, and what we want. So it's important to us to be good stakeholders, be good players and participants in the area. So we don't put any pressure on people. So I think we've built a good reputation there, and I think it will be easy for us to expand if we want. But we have 90% of the most prospective area. There is, I'm aware now that there are a couple of other groups running around the outskirts, maybe some guys out of West Perth, trying to lease or leasing, and it's a compliment actually. So, but we feel like we're set, but we'll add a little bit more. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
I've already
Look,
have said too much.
yes. Yes. This one's just, and maybe something for Dr. Russell rather, but so discovery thesis at Gillam, and what sort of specific geological vectors give us confidence in this area?
Yeah. Okay. So if you go back and look at the last release we made, the geological interp, you see where the mines are. You see where they've obviously mined, they've gone down, they can't mine any further. It's either water or antimony price or silver price or whatever it is has kind of collapsed or gone against them. So people walk away. So you start with where the mines have occurred. And if you look at Dr. Russell's interpretation, there's been nothing in between. So you have a mine here and a mine here, but no one's done anything in between and looked in between. And those mines might go down and then along, and then they stop. So there's a huge amount of potential out there. So that's what the interp tells us. Once we've got some geochem, and we've done some rock chip sampling and some stream sampling, and mapped the whole permit area, we'll get some hotspots. And I suspect those hotspots will be around the 7 areas that Dr. Russell has identified, and we'll be putting some drill holes in there, pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Mindful of time, we've sort of run over here. What should shareholders be looking forward to from a news flow perspective, across 2026 as we sort of evolve into that diversified US critical minerals company?
Yeah, right. Okay, and great question. As I said earlier, we're not sitting around going, "Yay, we've got a project. Let's, wait until 2026. It's November or early December. Everything's shut." So, I'd say announcements to come will be, we're on the ground. I'll put an announcement out on that. That's not that exciting for shareholders just sitting there, but it is for us because we know that we'll see some pretty exciting results from that. And then coming to January, February, you'll start to see some results of that on-ground work. We've had a lot of interest out of the US from US investors. And so, we are maybe looking at doing something over there in terms of a listing of some sort. We would like to tap into the 350 million potential investors. If you look at a couple of companies that have listed recently, on OTC. It's a relatively simple process. That's something we're considering. And what that does is that drives volume. And what you see in a couple of stocks I watch closely is massive volumes in their stock overnight. Now, those volumes on OTC can't be reported twice. So if a market maker has, 1 million shares and he finds a buyer, the buyer will buy those 1 million shares. The 1 million shares are printed over there. But quite often what you see is the market makers don't have the stock that the buyers want. So they basically go, okay, well, Jane, you're sitting in New York, you want to buy $10 million worth of Pantera. I'll set you at a price, and then they come into the market here the next day to buy the stock to cover that facilitation that they've made to you. So that's something we're looking at, an OTC listing, and that's being driven by inquiries that I'm getting out of the US on how do I buy stock. My broker doesn't allow me to buy shares in Australia. And so that's something that I think will be a positive for us, positive news, and positive for volume and hopefully price.
Yeah, absolutely. Barnaby, we've run over time here. I want to thank you for your insights. And if we've missed any of your questions, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. But we look forward to hosting you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane. Thanks for everyone for showing up.